Argus Media, this is Driving Discussions, a podcast series focusing on the forces affecting North American road fuels. Greetings and salutations, one and all. Jason Metko with you yet again, Associate Editor of U.S. Products here at Argus. And today we welcome on our Midcontinent gasoline reporter, Zach Appel, who has a unique situation to share for premium gasoline in the region over this past summer. Zach, welcome to the presentation. Before we get into the situation that happened this past summer, give us a bit of a rundown of what Chicago premium gasoline looks like under more typical circumstances, if you don't mind.
Hey, good morning, Jason. Thanks for having me. So premium gasoline in Chicago is usually at a pretty steep premium to regular grades and is traded pretty seldomly. In the absence of regular trade, the grade moves in relation to regular CBOB. For example, last summer, premium CBOB averaged around a 71.26 premium to regular. That's a bit wider than elsewhere in the country, which is mostly as a result of the isolated refining complex in Chicago, and it's faced a number of supply disruptions across the last couple of years.
So this dynamic shifted during the summer. Give us an idea of how all this went down.
So Chicago premium gasoline prices were on quite a run during the summer, which isn't surprising given the refining environment in that region. Prices were unseasonably high even after exiting the summer driving season, and premium has been more independent of regular gasoline than it usually is. As I said before, premium and regular gasoline prices are usually pretty closely related and usually move in relation to one another, but there were points during the summer and after where the dynamics on premium and regular were separate. Sometimes we see that sort of a split between RBOB and CBOB where the grades will become independent of one another, especially during the summer, but it's unusual for that to happen with premium and regular grades. And we first started to see dynamics like that emerge around the 21st of May following ExxonMobil's fire at their Joliet refinery in Shanahan, Illinois. Then a month later, a derecho hit Chicago and took down that same refinery. And that lasted into August. And then in addition to those outages, we had some turnarounds, both at Cenovus's Lima refinery in Ohio, as well as BP's Whiting refinery in Indiana. And just to give you an idea of the magnitude of these turnarounds, the Whiting refinery is not only the biggest refinery in the Chicago area, but also the largest refinery in the Midcontinent as a whole. All of this to say that it led to a big spike in cash prices for premium and a big draw on regional stockpiles.
He is Zach Appel, our Midcontinent gasoline reporter on this edition of Driving Discussions. Zach, you said before that regular grades usually move in relation to premium grades. I have to imagine that those refinery disruptions you talked about did stuff to regular grades as well.
Absolutely. Regular prices in July were also quite high. The arbitrage for shipping CBOB from the U.S. Gulf Coast to Chicago was at its widest level in almost 2 years during that month, and CBOB stocks on the U.S. Midcontinent as a whole hit a 9-month low at the end of July. The EPA, in response to a lot of these things, waived some fuel limitations in August that eased some of the summer volatility requirements, effectively making fuel cheaper to produce in the region. And those waivers were later extended until the end of summer, until the end of the summer driving season, that is, which ends around Labor Day. The waivers, along with resupplies from the U.S. Gulf Coast, eased the supply deficiencies in the area for regular grades. But while prices were cooling on CBOB and RBOB, premium values were still relatively hot.
So resupplies and the waivers seem like they would have an effect on premium prices. Are there any factors that would have kept premium grade values pretty high too?
The resupplies and waivers did have an effect. It was just a more muted one. Premium prices at the end of May were at their highest level since the end of 2022. While prices certainly slid from those levels as the summer driving season ended and the waivers were issued and RVP requirements decreased, they were still much higher than usual. Premium gasoline prices in Chicago this year averaged around 104.2 cent premium to regular gasoline. Which is about between May and September, which is about 32.94 cents higher than the same period a year earlier. So even as prices were coming down, they were relatively much higher than in the previous year. And the bigger issue, from what we understand, was related to the logistics of resupply in Chicago. The Midcontinent as a whole is reliant on the U.S. Gulf Coast to plug holes in production, whether that be from refinery outages, turnarounds, or whatever else. Usually those resupplies are going to be delivered on the Explorer pipeline to Group 3 of Chicago, and we actually saw a decent amount of spot trade on Explorer pipeline CBOB coming into Chicago, which likely helped to ease some of the regular prices. But premium was a different story. From what we've heard from market participants, it's always been difficult to ship premium in Chicago, which is why Chicago's premium regular spreads are typically much wider than in other parts of the country. But over the summer, we heard that Explorer Pipeline changed some of the volume and specification minimums around premium CBOB to match other Midcontinent carriers they connect with. And market participants say that this increased the difficulty on what was already a challenging grade to ship. The result of this, along with the refinery outages and turnarounds, was a sort of perfect storm of supply constraints from premium grades that led to unseasonably high prices and a high relationship to regular grades. In addition to that, resupply options from the U.S. Gulf Coast were pretty limited because of this, which made that hole in production particularly hard to plug. To crystallize all this, while CBOB came in from the U.S. Gulf Coast to shore up the shortage, premium gasoline in Chicago was largely insulated from the factors that cooled regular CBOB, which could have led to the unusual dynamics between the two.
A couple more moments with our Midcontinent gasoline reporter, Zach Appel, on this edition of Driving Discussions. So, Zach, with all that you've just discussed, what's an outlook looking forward?
Well, we're already seeing prices begin to ease, and we've seen regular and premium spreads, although wider than usual, have fallen back into relation with each other. As refinery capacity in the Mid-Continent returns, the resupply issue will become smaller, and as the region regains the ability to make more of its own product, the importance of being able to easily draw from the U.S. Gulf Coast should decrease. BP Whiting's turnaround was slated to end around mid-November, and regular and premium prices in general have begun to slide. That could be in anticipation of returning supply in the region.
Zach, an outstanding job. Thanks for coming by, and we'll get you back on soon. Argus's Midcontinent gasoline reporter Zach Appel joined us on the Driving Discussions podcast series, a presentation of Argus Media, a leading independent provider of pricing and commodity market information. And for the latest in news in the U.S. Midcontinent when it comes to all things gasoline, make sure you subscribe to the daily Argus Media U.S. Products Report.